Before we begin, this audio contains detailed descriptions of crime scenes that are more gruesome than your average he was murdered plot. I recommend skipping this episode if that does not suit you. With that being said, please enjoy.
He will pay. They will pay. You will pay.
Hey, Deputy? Are you alright? You were having another nightmare, I think. Was it about the cult of Natas? What did they do to you? Branded. Poor thing. Let's see what you've missed. Well, while you were out sick for the past week, we've had an increase in the disappearances from 20,424 cases to 38,895 cases. Seems like the person behind this considers you a threat to them, seeing as when you were out of commission and couldn't help me figure out what happened, they strike extremely hard in a week. It's gotten to a point where the victims don't even mention their paranoia of being watched, just the usual angel choir singing in their ear. Oh, we have tried protecting a victim, but it only ended up in a repeat of Miller's case. We had 5 officers waiting outside the target's house. None of them survived, and the victim was murdered. Like with Miller, the victim's body was nailed to the center of a pentagram drawn with that black substance and the victim's innards. And as for the cops stationed at the house, we found all 5 of them in the woods the next morning. All 5 burned on a stake, facing each other. A painting of each of them at the foot of their stakes, each with their own quote attached to them. You want me to go over them to catch you up to speed? Alright, deep breath. The first person was Officer Matthew. He was found with a broken right arm and left leg, as well as a massive fracture in the right side of his skull. From the autopsy, coroners determined his skull was broken, but that isn't what killed him. He was very much still alive and could feel pain. As to how, though, seeing as the injury he sustained would be fatal, we don't really know. When he was burned, he felt every moment. The quote attached to him read, "Officer Matthew, his sins great, challenged our rule. For that, he paid the price of his life. An eye for an eye." The painting along with that quote was titled, "The Headhunter." It was a painting of what we can only assume was Matthew ripping the head off of a person. All of the paintings that are left after the scene of the disappearances correspond to a crime or sin someone committed before. In the case of Officer Matthew, a few years ago, when on the chase for a criminal, Matthew mistook a civilian for the criminal and pinned them down in a headlock. However, the civilian that he had held in the headlock had a history with a weak and frail neck. Because Matthew was 6'4" and weighed 260 pounds, added on the extra force he was using in the headlock, he ended up breaking the civilian's neck, killing them. Only afterwards did he realize it was not the suspect he was after. The ambulance was called, but the damage was done. So, the civilian was pronounced dead. Yeah, I guess Matthew did unlawfully kill an innocent person, but again, it was an accident. That didn't mean it's fair for the sick person behind all of this to break 2 of his limbs, cave his skull in, and burn him alive. It's just not. The second person to go was Officer Shay. She was found with a missing eye, a sprained knee, and her vocal cords torn out, and somewhat wrapped around her neck. Coroners reported she died from blood loss right before her burning. The quote attached to her read, "Officer Shay, her sins of uncleanliness and manipulation cost her the eye she used to tempt others, and the voice she used to manipulate them." Officer Shay, before she was a police officer, had a job in preaching. However, she used her influence over others to make herself rich by exploiting others. She was obviously eventually caught and imprisoned for 6 years, before being released and becoming a police officer. But even then, getting her life together, someone remembered the bad thing about her. The painting of what we assumed to be her depicted an unholy amalgamation of mouths screaming, and around the amalgamation were people stealing and killing each other. "You okay, Deputy?" "Just making sure. This is your first day back, and considering how you've already had a nightmare, just wanted to make sure that you could handle the last 3, as they are gruesome, to say the least." The third was Officer Will, found with his lower half removed and replaced with the deer's lower half. Coroners think he died when encountering the culprit behind all of these, though the autopsy on him told a different story. For some odd reason, his heart suddenly experienced a very, very severe case of ventricular tachycardia and started pumping mass amounts of blood throughout his body at an intensity so high that some of his veins popped. Most in his pulmonary veins, which caused the flow of oxygenated blood going from his lungs to his heart to reverse their direction. Effectively, he drowned in his own blood from the inside. As for Will's lower half, further in the forest we found a deer with Will's lower half. The quote attached to the painting at the foot of his stake read, "Will pushed his ideals onto others, resulting in death. Took the lives of innocents, and so he took his own." The painting was of what appeared to be a hunter with a knife, stabbing themselves as well as a fawn before its mother. Out of all of them, he had a more gruesome ending. He was an illegal poacher before becoming a police officer. Ended up hunting 234 silver-eyed deer, I believe, which are native to Medell only, so not that big of a population has grown. I think the last time I checked, only 15 were in the wild, out of 249. Moving on, the fourth death was Chief of the K-9 Unit, Officer Richard. His body, along with his K-9 partner's body, were discovered to have multiple things swapped. Richard had his left arm and right eye replaced with his dog's, and vice versa. But the disturbing and more grotesque part was the fact the culprit, they swapped the organs of the two. Richard had his lungs, kidney, large intestine, and heart swapped for his dog's, and his dog got Richard's stomach, small intestine, liver, and bladder swapped. The rest of the organs were strung around the woodpile of their stake. The quote attached to the painting was also disturbing. Richard and his companion ended the future many times, for many lives. Tore out organs and swapped them around for sick pleasures. Their sins shall be faced with the same fate. The painting depicted a demon with their organs exposed, and a demonic canine ripping apart what appears to be farmers. The disturbing thing about all of this is we originally thought Richard and his dog had no previous criminal record, but upon closer inspection, we found out that he had handwritten confessions of killing victims and swapping their organs after we investigated his house while he was sick. For taking a job of protecting the innocent while he previously killed them, he was at least kind enough to pull an Arlo and write down his misdoings. He still had his job because, well, he was good at it. Not one charged against him as a police officer, and he was being watched like a hawk. Then there is Case 5. Sheriff Amanda. She was found with her organs ripped out and used to string her to the stake. She was wearing a part of her small intestine cut and wrapped around her head with thorn vines to make a messed up version of the crown of thorns. Amanda, her sins were grave, committed killings to that she repaid. But her greatest sin of all, one that could not be forgiven, she tried protecting the evil and the spawn they harbored. And for that, they will meet again in afterlife. The painting attached was an image of the victim with a surprisingly human appearance, holding two spawns of Satan, with Amanda trying to protect them from an angel, with their face blurred out by black paint. It was the only painting with the officer being human. It was simply called The Angel's Wrath. I don't want to think about or know what crimes Amanda committed. There you are, caught up to speed on what happened when you were sick. The only other thing that happened was, I think I caught onto a new lead. After you got knocked down by mild acute bronchitis, I went to the family-owned restaurant nearby. No, it was not Arlo Trenes. When you called in sick, I investigated the people there, and I got one to talk. He was a big dude. He told me about how, when he was hunting out in the woods, one night he saw what he assumed to be a person. When he tried to get close, it ran away, but he managed to snap a photo. When we zoomed in on it, and after a lot of trial and error and editing to make sure that we got the clearest look that we can, we found out the thing in the photo was Harrow. He is still alive. But something our colleagues failed to see when we first inspected the photo. Normally, Harrow would have a creepy glare and smile, even when running. But in the photo, he looked terrified, like he had witnessed something that he shouldn't have. When we looked at old security footage of him, his eyes said it all. They were soulless, merciless, downright psychopathic. But here, in the new image we have of him, I can see a soul in there, and it is screaming in fear. He had seen something or someone he shouldn't have. All of this is to say, get up. We have a job to do. Well, we know that Harrow is still alive, but that doesn't mean he's the cause behind the disappearances necessarily. If there's something in the world terrifying enough to scare Harrow's soul back into him, it means there is something deeper behind all of this. And that's why we are at the church. This was one of the first buildings in this state. It's bound to have something in it. Essentially grasping at straws and a little detective's hunch. Come on, deputy. We have got some investigating to do. What the hell? Deputy? Looks like Harrow is the culprit up there. Gabriel Learbag. Looks like Harrow got to him. And he was not happy. Impaled on one of the organ's pipes. My detective's hunch didn't seem to be wrong. Gabriel. His name. That of the Archangel. Yet he was not. He was a demon who lies and deceives. No angel lies, only demons. He cost many their lives, and so the very instrument played to the dead god is the very same one that shows him the truth. Kind of harsh, even by Harrow's standards. Was this personal reasons? Let's keep looking around. What the? VHS tape.
The feast opens the mouth in the sky as the blood of the gods pour out unto the earth to feed those who hear the prayers of...
Your god is dead. He bowed to me.
What the? What was that thing? Why did... No, I'm not okay. I need a break. Can you drive us back to the station? I need a moment to think. Hey guys, Scratch here. This audio, once again, made by TPA. Slightly edited by me. I don't really have much to say. But yeah. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe. I love Enchanter with comments, and you made this far, so why not subscribe? Join the Patreon and the Discord, and yeah. Bye-bye.